like turn it into their own personal, kind of everyday thing, and kind of like, turn it into their colloquial, kind of phrases and everyday language. I mean, that's the kind of thing that really is extremely flattering to me, and is a signifier that I must be doing something when it comes to just connecting with people, which is, my ultimate goal when it comes to doing this, to be able to turn people on to music that I think is interesting, be able to show music that I think is good, and, as long as I sort of stay open to what comes down the pipe, and I've had my times where I'm like, I've heard a new thing and I've just been like, Little B, for example. I remember when I heard Little B at first, like most people, in this room, I'm sure, you just did not get it. And you were like, who's this dude? He's like, bitches on my dick because I look like Jesus. And it's like, what does that even mean? Little B in the house, got that shirt. But then it's like, then afterwards, after watching like 100 of his videos because they're so terrible, you're like, man, I got to keep watching this train wreck. And then you realize, like, wait, he's joking. He's making fun of everybody doing that. And then you actually run across one of his songs where he's like rapping about something meaningful. And you're like, oh, well, he still sounds kind of dopey, but he's making sense now. It's, I guess the lesson in that is that, I'm going to try to do my best into the future to be open to different and new things when they come across, even if I am turned off to them at first. And just continue hearing them even if I am disappointed with the first album or the second album, even if I don't end up reviewing it, at least try it out to kind of see where things are going. I mean, there are a number of artists whose earlier stuff I hated, and then I ended up liking their next album. Vampire Weekend, for example, didn't really care for the debut. Just thought like, what is this duty? This is just too, kind of flirty for me. It's too frilly. But just ended up listening to the second album, and I don't know if it was, I know they changed a little bit on the second album, but also, I felt like I had changed by the music just by giving it another shot, giving it another chance. Let's take another question. Blue shirt, and then white shirt. Very good question. And something that I think also kind of goes back to the fact that trends are ever changing so much faster in the internet age. You can go back to, if you think in your head, hey, dude, tell me like the best, tell me like the best genre to come out of the 90s, like one of the biggest or best genres.
Post-disco.
Post-disco? That's like a total liar. It's a liar. That dude's from MU. MU planted him here and tried to sabotage my show. Anyway, when you think 90s, you think stuff like grunge, man. Grunge came out in the 90s. Like, because of the internet from now on, I don't think you're ever gonna have one genre defining a whole decade. You know what I'm saying? Because people get tired of stuff fast. You don't have the radio and you don't have MTV to constantly be hammering that stuff in your face over and over and over. Now, radio and MTV are just taking songs and bands and artists that get popular on the internet first, because the internet is the perfect place to crash test things like that. Oh, this is really popular now. We didn't even need to spend a dime trying to promote them. Now we already know that they're popular. Let's do it, Let's get Krayshawn on here. She'll do that Gucci song. Kitty Pryde, too. People go nuts. Me and Kitty Pryde are like, Facebook each other. It's weird. Like, she was Facebook friends with me for like a year, and then she did that video, and I didn't even know. And then she's like, oh, hey, I watch your show. And I'm like, what? Really? What? Why? Like, you're doing your cloud rap thing. And she's like, hey, don't ever review my music. And I'm like, why? And she's like, if you give it a bad review, no one will listen to it anymore. So, inside info right there. But I do think she's entertaining, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm trying to do a friend a favor. All right.
Getting back to live shows, do you remember the first live show you ever went to?
First live show I ever went to. My dad's friend from work had Tesla tickets. VIP seats, saw Tesla. Dad didn't even go. Dad totally let me hang out with his friend and his like weird skeevy biker girlfriend. And, he's like this ex-rock drummer and like totally went to go see Tesla with them. People at the VIP corner over there were like smoking pot and it was drifting over here. They bought me a pretzel and I just, I was like, how old was I? So like 13, maybe. I was like 13 maybe. And then, and that was the time. That was the first rock band I ever saw. The first rock band I wanted to see with my friends was, like a VFW show and just kind of seeing some local bands and stuff like that. But to also kind of like go back, because I definitely wanted to finish answering the question that she asked. I mean, personally, I think it's going to kind of be touch and go with who is remembered 10 or 20 years from now. I mean, it's like, there are bands out there kind of like Animal Collective and, Godspeed and Radiohead that are still popular today, but still kind of like, go back before that internet era, before, you had to be giving away your music for free in order for people to listen to it, before that huge competition kind of bubble blew up. Before all of that, it's like these bands don't really have to put out albums every single year in order to stay relevant. They have that fact that they come from the past. People who've been listening to their music love it and always sort of champion it. They've had time, because there was less music coming out at the time, to sort of sit down and let it become a part of their lives, whereas right now, we're sort of listening to an album and just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. And is that a terrible thing? I don't know. I do it, and I'm happy. I paid for the record. The artists got their dough. They're sort of, I hope, making a living. It's not like in this day and age, skipping to another record because, I like it, and just kind of feeling another mood is necessarily hurting the artist. But, I know for a fact that also a lot of people out there today are just not even really, like I said earlier, listening to complete albums, but maybe more so just the songs that appeal to them most from those albums and kind of letting them stick to them. And it's kind of funny how you can kind of take music and just sort of put it into the back of your head and just sort of apply it to time and apply it to time in relation to memory. Like I remember when I was listening to that new St. Vincent record, Strange Mercy, there was a certain guitar riff on there that totally just sounded like Dirty Projectors-esque and just like whoosh, like everything, like 2009 came back. It was like Back to the Future or something. I was just like thinking a bit of Orca. I was thinking about posting on my shitty Blogspot blog. I was thinking about like, how I had my furniture positioned at the time and who I was hanging out with. Like, just like weird stuff. But I think because of how, hyperinflated the music industry is right now with artists, it's going to be hard for us to kind of like be, hey, remember that band 10 years ago? It's like along with the 10,000 other bands that we listen to, it's hard to kind of come out and define that thing, because as soon as you come out with a style, like, Little B with the whole cloud rap thing, you get a dude like A$AP Rocky who totally comes out of nowhere, does the same thing, with maybe a slightly cooler look, and then people end up liking that more, and you kind of usurped. You know what I mean? It's like hyper competition, whereas before, when everything was controlled by the major labels in terms of who you're getting exposed to and who you listen to, they could control that. We made sure we had one Nirvana. We didn't sign the 10,000 other bands that sound like Nirvana. We just wanted them. Now you can hear that band and the hundreds of other bands that sound like them to your leisure. Nobody's stopping you. Did I answer it okay? Did I do good? Okay. Another Twitter question?
Oh, another question from the Twitter, from the Twitters, the tweet people, is Alex Kinney, who has the handle @StoopStep, and he asks, you gave your first 10 out of 10 review this year. Is it still a 10 for you?
Yes, I am. Yes, it is. It's still a 10 for me. Like I said earlier, I don't expect my opinion 30 years from now on that album to be the same. I'm going to be a completely different person, whether I want to be a completely different person or not. I'm going to be a totally different person. That music may still appeal to me, but maybe not on the same level. Death Grips the Money Store. Gave Death Grips the Money Store a 10. First 10 I ever gave to a new album. And sort of while we're, on that topic of what a 10 is, because people take the score so seriously, and I don't know why. But, a 10 to me doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean that, you should drop everything you're doing, and if you don't like this, you're dumb, and I hate you, and I think you should just stop listening to music in general. It doesn't mean any of that. I think with, kind of giving a score like that, people automatically assume that, well, if I don't like it, he must think I have bad taste. Not the case. It's just an album that appeals to me, excites me, that I enjoy to what I imagine to be my peak level of enjoyment. And that's it. So yeah, it is still a 10 for me at the moment. Will that change? Eventually, probably, yeah. But it's not going to change in like 6 months. It's not going to change in a year. Though my opinions on albums do change, and I acknowledge that, it's not something that usually just happens overnight. It's something that usually happens with time, whether it's for the better or for the worse. Is there another question? Yes? Mm-hmm. I mean, usually when I'm listening to an album, I kind of like to the best of my abilities, listen to it a little bit, a few days before I'm going to be reviewing it. Maybe give it one cursory listen, maybe in the background or in the foreground, and just kind of, at least know in my head what the style is I'm going to be going in for. Like, oh, this is this style. I know this, or I don't know this, or, just kind of like acquaint myself with, kind of what I'm going to be hearing. Then, over the course of the next few days, and I usually have some time, throw it on my iPhone. I'll be there in front of my computer, burn it onto a CD, put it in my car. Maybe I've got it on record, just find some time knowing I have the review up, just actually going to listen to it all the way through. And then maybe the day of the review, actually, kind of give it like a 4 to like solid 5 listens if the album isn't like, like for that Swans record, I had to be like doing some pre-listening because that thing is 2 hours freaking long. And that Krallis album that I'm going to be reviewing next was an hour long. And, sometimes albums like that can really just like take their toll on me. But, basically as I'm doing that and kind of the day of the review, I'm just kind of like writing it out. Or as I'm listening at first, just sort of like write an introduction and then just kind of leave my impressions for the album later. Because if I get that intro written out, this band's from here and they've made this many records and this is their style and yada, yada, yada. I can usually just like fly right into doing the review itself pretty easily because as I'm thinking about what the music is, I hate thinking about what the band used to do, because it's just so distracting and it takes my mind away from other things. So as I'm kind of writing out mostly bullet points and just kind of like, ideas and fractured sentences, I'm listening, sort of deciding individually how I like each track, what I like about each track, what I don't like about each track, and then finally what I think about the album as a whole or the collection of songs or whatever. And then from there, just kind of like turning on my Canon T2i and kind of hooking it into my Mac and, shooting the video, everything that I've read out, kind of like get some Cal thing down, playing the piano, say something ridiculous, maybe respond to the band name being silly. And, just kind of thinking hard about, because I know how people react to them, what the score is going to be, which I usually kind of accumulate due to whether or not I like every song. I kind of look at every song individually, and then I'm like, well, it's like I hate this first part of the album. I love this second part, and the third part's great. I'm going to kind of, given that this part, this section, a third of it is this, a third of it's that, a third of it is this, I'm going to kind of give it this roundabout thing because, I don't know, I started doing that because I found that when I didn't think about it that way, I was giving way more positive reviews than I think I would have otherwise because I would normally start writing the review and I would completely forget about all the things I hated. And, and then people would say, well, what about that part? I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that part at all. Actually, there were a lot of parts I didn't like. And then I would just like sort of realize that I actually didn't really like the album as much as I did. This to me is sort of like, I don't want to say it's accurate. It's not the way everybody should approach reviewing anything, but it's what works for me personally, and then from writing the review and just sort of, doing my best to sort of explain how I feel and why I feel that way, just talking about it on camera, throwing it into Final Cut, putting it together. If I actually have to end up cutting a sentence off, or another sentence or cut that I did starts weird, throw in one of those Skippy edits. And, from there, we have the review. Any part that seems like I skipped over? No? Okay.
Do you think that in this age of instantaneous accessibility, do you think the art of making an album, do you think that's changed?
A lot of it has to do with the fact that people, is this still on? Okay, we're good. Was that for like 20 minutes? Was I talking for 20 minutes and the mic was dead? I think it has to do a lot more with the fact that access to recording technology is much cheaper than it used to be. You can make an album on your laptop, and even though a lot of people make terrible albums on their laptop, you can make a great album on your laptop if you wanted to, and have some good microphones that you could buy for several $100s at your local music store or online. That has definitely changed the process of making the album in a great way. I mean, and that has its pros and its cons. I mean, if you make an album in a professional studio, you may be working with a producer who actually knows their shit and knows how to record instruments and actually has great ideas for how a song should flow and build in the different sections for a song. Or, you could kind of have an instance where you've got a dude like the microphones, Phil Elvermore or, Smog, who make music themselves, record it themselves, and don't do it in an orthodox way. And because they're so outside of the normal rules of recording music, they have a completely different and unique sound all their own. The way certain things are mixed and the way certain instruments sound are due to the fact that they kind of experimented with recording music themselves. So the art is changing because different things, just like that lo-fi craze that I mentioned earlier, are, kind of, oh, wow, this sounds great. It's like, this would have never been made if, somebody was like, hey, listen, you would never make that album at a professional studio, a dude who runs a board would look at you like you're weird, or just like, I don't know what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to me, but okay. You don't necessarily need to pay thousands of dollars at a music studio to make music like that, and it just ends up appealing to people. I feel like that kind of has its ups and its downs. People kind of have less expectations for good sound quality, but there is the opportunity to record something that's sort of outside of the box and really creative and new and kind of exciting. So the art of the album has definitely changed in the recording aspect. And, I don't know if this is going to be worse into the future, but the art of making the album has definitely changed in the fact that you have to put out so much more material in order to stay relevant and have people thinking about you and actually interested in the music you're making. There are so many rappers out there right now who just put out mixtape after mixtape after mixtape, and they know going into it that a majority of their fans are probably not going to like all the songs on the mixtape, but just because it's free, you just grab a few songs from it that you liked and you just kind of take it from there. I mean, especially in the case of, Lil B, not that every single song that he makes is terrible, that's not what I'm trying to say, but I mean, the dude's a genius when it comes to marketing his stuff. He knows that, the key to staying on top and the key to staying relevant and just having people thinking about you and talking about you is to always be putting out new material. And is that going to have a positive or a negative effect on the quality of music we listen to overall? I mean, I don't know. I think we're always going to have bands like, Block Party or, Arcade Fire or something like that put out albums every several years, that people really anticipate, and it's because they've sort of reached a certain level of popularity in order to, be able to kind of live that lifestyle. But, who knows? I feel like artists like that are going to be less and less into the future, though still there, because just the sheer amount of competition.
I know you have a lot of vinyls. Do you still listen to music on vinyl, or is it more just like collectors?
I do, mostly on the weekends, when I actually kind of have an hour or so to myself, a free hour, because most days during the week I'm just kind of like waking up at 9 a.m., going to bed at 4 a.m., doing the review. I was up that late until I was doing the Crowless review, although I edited it this morning because I was just like, I got a migraine. I was just at the CT Music Awards. I'm tired. I'm just going to go to bed. But it's like, it's a really demanding schedule. And, because of it, I don't have a lot of time to listen to, older albums or albums I may have on vinyl. But when I do, it's usually on the weekends. And yeah, I do listen to them whenever I get the chance. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're next.
I think
get you.
So the one that I had here is with independent music coverage increasingly going towards video, is long-form text criticism still relevant? What you don't do, basically, is that still relevant?
Mm-hmm. I think it's still relevant, and I think it's still going to continue to be relevant. It's just that, there are tons of people who review stuff on video, just like I do, no matter what the topic is, who do not get popular. If what I did was the thing to do, everybody who did it would be popular. I mean, you have to convey your feelings in a way that people can relate to. If you could do that on text, if you could do that via podcast, or if you could do that via smoke signal, you're going to have people who want to pay attention to that thing. If you can convey feelings that people relate to and people can understand and just kind of, project that onto them and then they feel it themselves, then they're going to be interested. Like I said, I feel like video is, growing. It's going to continue to grow. And I feel like part of the reason I've seen the success that I have is that, I consider myself a better talker than I do a writer. I convey emotions better with my hands than I do text or anything like that, I like person-to-person conversation. I mean, of course the YouTube videos aren't exactly that, but when I'm making one or I'm sort of talking to the camera, I imagine that I'm talking to a group about this size or something like that, sort of giving a book report on an album in a really awkward way. But yeah, if text is going to be relevant as long as there are people using text to convey feelings that people are interested in reading about. I mean, Hipster Runoff, for example, though, a lot of people, have said all over that website, this website's crappier than it used to be. They still go on it, though. But the thing is, Carl's, who writes that site, or, we still think writes that site, has a certain style with how he writes. And, you go into that website expecting to read that style. And, even though he may say something that has been said 100 times over, because it's in that way where it's a little comedic and it makes you sort of think about the situation a little bit, it's more appealing than just reading that opinion somewhere else. So yeah, text and every form of media I think is still going to be relevant. And like I said, just as long as people are still doing a good job of conveying their feelings through it in a way that people are feeling themselves. Last question. The pressure.
You talked about anticipation a little while ago. Can we be expecting a Cal Chuchesta solo album?
Cal Chuchesta solo album /EP? All right, to be completely honest, I was sort of thinking about, I might do some more shirts or something in the winter, or something like that. And what I may do is sort of like push Cal to do an album or something that people can like get for a free download along with the shirt or something like that. I was thinking about that. So, that's something I was kind of plotting on. So I'm thinking yes at the moment. Okay. Don't applaud. Oh, God. What if it's bad? What if it's bad? You heard that beat when I came out. Cal made that. Who liked that? That wasn't good. One guy liked it. He's got one fan in the room. Everybody else, no hands. So you're looking forward to this? Looking forward to it? Okay, and that's it. That's forever.
Thank you for coming, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed our talk with Anthony Fantano. If you're interested in WSU, we got table outside. And hi to all the people watching on 4chan. We saw your board. All right, good night.